It began as a low-pressure blip on the Met Department charts and then began to grow deep in the Bay of Bengal. By the middle of May, it had been classified as a Category 5 super cyclone with wind speeds that could reach more than 250 kilometers per hour. It drew its energy from the warm waters of the Bay of Bengal and became the first super cyclone to form in the region since. When it finally struck land, its power had diminished a bit, but it was still as a very severe cyclone that Amphan made landfall. And as it moved in a northeasterly direction across the Bengal Delta, it left in its wake destruction across India and Bangladesh, impacting millions of people and taking several lives. It was only the preparedness of relief agencies and the learnings from the past in both countries that still kept the cost in lives comparatively low.
Hello and welcome to our coverage of the passage of Amphan, the cyclone that has left a trail of destruction across Bengal and parts of Odisha as well. Over the next half hour, we'll take you through this trail of destruction left by the super cyclone. Bengal, clearly the worst affected state. But first up, how did it all begin? The timeline of Cyclone Amphan, right from the day the Indian Meteorological Department sounded an alert to the time it made a landfall.
By the end of April, the Indian Met Department was issuing warnings that the season's first cyclone could be forming over the Andaman Sea. Low-pressure winds started to form over the Bay of Bengal, and after being stable for about a fortnight, it began building up in severity by May 16th. The IMD now warned of a severe cyclonic storm within the next 24 hours. On 18th of May, the cyclone, now named Amphan, was barely 1,000 kilometers away from the coast, and ships and boats began to hurriedly clear out of its path. The bay began to wear an ominously deserted look. The cyclone kept on building and wind speeds intensified, till it began to blow in circles at upwards of 270 kilometers per hour. On 19th of May, as nervous trackers on land watched, the cyclone was estimated to be just a day away from the coast of northern Odisha and southern Bengal. The NDRF rushed to complete the positioning of the 41 teams that they were deploying to carry out evacuation and relief. The super cyclone was expected to hit land within the next 24 hours, and authorities moved around 4.5 lakh people from the most vulnerable of spots to safer cyclone shelters. The sea began to froth and the wind began to build as the coast braced itself to absorb the fury of Cyclone Amphan. By the morning of Wednesday, the 20th of May, the sky had already darkened and rain lashed areas 100 kilometers inland. In Kolkata, the populace, already in Corona quarantine, reinforced windows and shutters. And by evening, the cyclone had made landfall. Wind speeds now spiraled up to 185 kilometers per hour. Those trees that could bend, bent over backwards to embrace the storm. Those that couldn't were found mauled when the cyclone had passed. In a span of just a couple of hours, the time that it took the spiraling winds to cross a point, the cyclone had left behind mangled anything on land that dared try obstruct its path.
The extremely severe cyclonic storm Amphan rolled through coastal East India late last evening, triggering heavy downpour first, fierce winds, and then left a trail of destruction. Kolkata and areas of 24 South Parganas and North Parganas were particularly affected, as was the Sundarbans. Watch this report.
Flattened houses, uprooted electric poles, felled trees and waterlogged roads. The Amphan cyclone has left behind a trail of destruction. The severe cyclonic storm crossed the Bengal coast near Digha on Wednesday afternoon. After reeling under the effects of coronavirus and the lockdown, Siddheshwar Maji and his wife have lost their shop, and with it, the hope of being able to earn in the near future. In Howrah district of West Bengal, roads were submerged in water and houses inundated.
হাওড়াতে মারা গেছেন 7 জন। নর্থ চব্বিশ পরগনা জেলায় মারা গেছেন 17 জন। পূর্ব মেদিনীপুরে মারা গেছেন 6 জন। চন্দননগর পুলিশ কমিশনারেট মানে হুগলি 2 জন। দক্ষিণ চব্বিশ পরগনা টোটাল নিয়ে হবে 18 জন, টোটাল 57 জন, আর কলকাতায় 15 জন।
Cable TV connection remains disrupted in parts of Kolkata, while mobile phone connection is also irregular. Parts of Kolkata airport were flooded and many structures within were damaged. The cyclonic storm also wreaked havoc in coastal districts of Odisha.
Right now, in the cyclone-affected areas, one can just say that comparatively there are two different scenarios. Odisha has been less damaged comparatively. There is comparatively more damage in the districts of West Bengal.
But here too, houses were damaged, trees uprooted and electricity poles flattened. Balasore, Bhadrak and Mayurbhanj districts experienced extreme gushing winds, and over 1.5 lakh people had to be taken to safety. District collectors have been asked to assess the damages caused by Cyclone Amphan and submit a report within 48 hours. Barely a couple of hours from India, Amphan made its way into Bangladesh, and it had lost none of its power as it continued to wreak havoc. The Sundarbans spread across both countries have been severely impacted, the extent of which will only be known later. The makeshift Rohingya refugee camps in Bangladesh's coastal Chittagong district had been most vulnerable, but they had a narrow escape. And the storm raged into the night, but as it moved further and further inland, the wind finally began to lose some of its killer speed.
Now, for the last 24 hours, our correspondents Indrajit and Manogya Loigwal have been across parts of Bengal, getting you ground reports from various locations of the cyclone-ravaged West Bengal. It's not been easy, but they've been on the ground. Take a look.
Cyclone Amphan, one of the worst in decades, has left parts of West Bengal, including capital Kolkata, devastated and damaged. Even the strongest buildings were not spared.
This continued for 7 hours. 7 straight hours, except a 45-minute interlude around 8 p.m. This was one of the scariest, and I can tell you it was pitch dark. When I say pitch dark, I opened my window at one point around 8 p.m. to try and see if I could see outside. I couldn't see a thing. It was that dark.
The entry to the prestigious Calcutta Club was completely blocked with uprooted trees.
It will take some time for the administration to bring everything back to normal, given the kind of situation that we are witnessing on the ground at this point in time.
It was a familiar sight in many parts of the capital a day after the super cyclone.
This is not just one. There are thousands of such fully grown trees that have been, thrown off. And what these workers are trying to do is they're using an axe. They're using an axe and they're trying to chop it off by their own hands, and they're trying to remove it one by one.
Not just Kolkata, popular seaside destination Digha was also one of the worst hit.
This is one of those pictures will explain the kind of devastation that has been caused. On one hand, the walls have fallen, and on the other, the devastation is so much that even the entrance to the house is no more.
এই গাছ তো কাটার কোনো লোক নেই, পাচ্ছি না, এখন নিজেদের বেরোতেও পাচ্ছি না, ঢুকতেও পাচ্ছি না। এই গাছ পড়ে গেছে, কালকে তো প্রচণ্ড ঝড় হয়েছিল, গাছ সব ভেঙে পড়ে গেছে। এই ঘরপর চালা সব উড়িয়ে নিয়ে চলে গেছে।
The trail of devastation was everywhere.
These shops which have been closed for past 2 days, but the boardings, the hoardings and almost everything seems to have been left in a different way now.
Super cyclone Amphan, the worst that Bengal has experienced in the living memory of most of its residents, has dealt a crushing blow to a state already reeling under the COVID-19. The storm is over, but now begins the difficult task of rebuilding lives and property.
The centers that are there, like the outposts of district police of Purva Mednipur, have been absolutely blown away. The destruction has been humongous, and so has been the impact on the lives too. With camera person Tapas Berry, this is Manogya Loiwal in Digha, West Bengal for India Today.
Let's go straight across to Indrajit, our correspondent who joins me at the moment from Kolkata. Indrajit, first of all, I know you've had a very difficult night yourself. You've been travelling in and across Kolkata. Has the situation now come more or less under control? Rain stopped completely?
Well, that's right. We haven't seen much of a rain all through the day. There was sporadic sunlight as well, even though more or less it has been overcast. So that helped the administration to clear the debris on the road. While I made my way home from office, the roads were mostly clear, even though the trees were on the side. So the task cut out for Kolkata Municipal Corporation. But yes, it was a very fearful and devastating night that we witnessed last night. Areas submerged in water in Kolkata. It was pitch dark. Electricity connection was snapped. So people really experienced something that they have possibly not experienced ever in their lives here in the city of Joy.
What was it that give us describe for us what you went through last night?
Well, the first thing that struck me was we were inside our India Today Kolkata office, and we could hear gushing noise, the fury of the cyclone. We've covered Feni, we have covered Piling, we knew that. But when we came out of our office to do our regular live broadcast at night, prime time, we were in for a shock because everything was pitch dark. There was no electricity. There was water which was knee deep, and suddenly outside the office we see huge, fully grown trees which had fallen. The lampposts had fallen. There was an eerie feeling. For about 1.5 hours, we tried moving through through the streets of Kolkata, but each and every road that we entered, it was blocked. We could not make our way home. Finally, it took us about 3.5 hours to reach a stretch of about 10 to 15 kilometers, and I reached home at 2:30 a.m. in the morning. So clearly, there's something that we have never seen before. People could not reach out to one another because telephone connections were not working.
Right.
And that created a lot of panic and fear amongst people as well.
Indrajit Kundu joining us there from Kolkata. Stay well, stay safe, and thank you for bringing us all those reports right through the last 24 hours. Come back to the passage of Amphan and the devastation that the cyclone has wreaked across the eastern coast of the country. Cyclone Amphan did take lives. But had it not been for the preparedness of relief agencies and the experience of the past, the aftermath could have been much, much worse, as it was in 2009 when Cyclone Aila had hit Kolkata. Have the lessons been learnt? Take a look.
Cyclone Amphan, one of the worst in decades, tore into India, making landfall with all its might. But the last big storm to hit Kolkata was Aila in 2009. Aila had struck the Sundarbans at 110 km per hour and its maximum speed was 103 km per hour when it was blowing through the city. It made landfall in Bengal and tall waves had wreaked havoc along the coast. Ahead of the cyclone, thousands of residents from coastal areas were evacuated and several warning alerts were issued. However, no alarm bells were rung. By the time it passed, the cyclone had killed over 145 people and 1,000 others were left homeless as torrential rains led to flooding. So when news came out about another cyclone hitting the coast, those who faced the wrath of Cyclone Aila in 2009 and Cyclone Fani and Bulbul a decade later were a worried lot.
বিশাল ভয় আছে আমাদের আগে যে ঝড় হয়েছিল এখনো কোনো ঘর বাড়ি কিছু করতে পারিনি খুব অসুবিধার মধ্যে আছি আমরা এখন আবার মাঝখান দিয়ে দুটো ঝড় চলে গেল আবার এই ঝড় আসছে এখন বাচ্চা কাচ্চা নিয়ে আমরা কোথায় যাব এখন এর আগে দুবার ঝড় বেরিয়ে তাতে তো আমার ঘর বাড়ি সব ভাসিয়ে নিয়ে গেছে নদীর ধারে বাস আমার কি করবে এখন এখন পরিস্থিতি মনে পড়ছে হ্যাঁ আইলার পরিস্থিতি তো মনে পড়ছে আর এই যে মাঝে দুটো ঝড় এসেছে এই দুটোও তো ভীষণ মনে পড়ছে আর এই যে লাস্টে যা আসছে এ তো আরো ভয়ানক নাকি
And Cyclone Amphan was much stronger. When it made landfall, the wind speeds spiraled up to 185 kilometers per hour. And it did uproot trees, blow off roofs and overturn vehicles. But the overall impact was far muted. That's because authorities were better prepared. 20 days in advance, the Indian Met Department was already issuing warnings. NDRF and Coast Guard were on high alert. Days ahead of the cyclone, the NDRF teams were rushed and lakhs of people were moved to safer locations. Ships and boats were cleared in time.
We are deploying 13 teams and 7 teams will be on standby. So that is a deployment commitment of 20 teams potentially. And similarly in West Bengal, 13 teams are already deployed. They have asked for 4 more teams just now. So that will be 17 teams by late evening today or tomorrow morning. So 17 teams will be deployed actually on ground and there will be 4 to 5 teams on standby. So in effect, we are talking of 30 teams between the 2 states which will be actually deployed and there will be probably about 10 to 11 teams which will be on standby.
Not just in India, but even in neighboring Bangladesh as well, the damage that Amphan could have done never materialized. Because this time, relief and safety measures were all in place from beforehand. And everyone was better prepared all along its path.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.